In my last video, we talked about how you can pass your placement by acing your interviews and that whole assessment process. But I did promise you that I would also make videos on SMART objectives. So here is this video for you. We're going to start by going through kind of what SMART is, and then I'm very happy to give you some examples of things that me and my team set our students in the organisation. But please remember that the examples that I give you are purely just examples. While they will be transferable to many different areas, don't set yourself up to fail by copying examples that I'm about to give. Before we jump straight into looking at the SMART model of how you set your objectives, I thought it was really pertinent at this point to talk about the information that is currently housed in your assessment document that you've got from your university. If you think about the process the university undertake for students to gain their nursing qualification, you have at the moment 50% clinical and 50% theory, both of which are obviously meant to complement each other by means of a lot of hard work by yourself, making sure that you can link theory to practice and utilise that really incredible knowledge that you're developing. But think of placements as a module that you're undertaking as part of your programme. That's exactly what they are. They're just a clinical module. So where you have your theoretical modules, clinical placements are just another different type of module, but in a very different type of format. So you get your module guide when you enroll on any type of module. Where's the module guide for your clinical placements? It's your assessment document, your practice assessment document. This will house all of the information that you need to set yourself up to achieve the objective of a clinical placement. So you have to get comfortable with the information that's within that assessment document. Read it from cover to cover. It will outline the criteria for success for you within each different year as an overall framework. But also look at your professional values. They're the ones that you get assessed at midpoint and then final. Have a look at what it is that you're expected to do and the level at which you're expected to participate in that care that you're providing. Also, flip to the back and go through all of your proficiencies, the skills in which you need to be demonstrating, but learning all the time and furthering your knowledge around those different skill sets. But what is it that we expect of a first year student nurse? I talked about this in my previous video around the different levels from year 1 to year 3, and the video is called Why is Second Year Nursing So Difficult? I think. Yeah. And it's really important that you remember that at first year, what we're expecting from you is that you're recognising what's going on around you and utilising that knowledge to piece together some of that nursing process. So when you think about what the university and what the trusts or hospitals or clinical areas that you're in are expecting of you, use both of those pieces of information to then make sure that your objectives are at least relevant to your level of work. It's really important that you do not tie yourself up in setting yourself an objective in the first year, first placement of managing a patient workload of 8 patients. It's great that you want to achieve and you want to do stuff and you're motivated to that kind of level, but don't tie yourself up. So let's go through the SMART model and then we'll look at some examples. So the S in SMART stands for specific. So in order to make sure that your objective is specific, you've got to keep your goal or your objective focused. Sometimes in nursing, our objectives and our goals that we set ourselves are long-term because of the care that we can provide can be long-term. But the environment and your personal views will change how you interpret that kind of goal. And this makes it really hard for you to keep on track. And it can even become demotivating because it's often not tangible. So be sure to keep that objective focused. The M stands for measurable. There has to be a way to measure your success. There has to be a way for you to measure that objective to feel that success. That sense of success really then provides you with the opportunity to celebrate. Being able to celebrate your success is going to provide you with internal motivation. So give yourself very clear milestones that you can achieve. Which brings us to A. Make sure it's achievable or attainable. Some people use different words. Now, your objectives should provide you with a challenge because let's face it, nursing is challenging, but don't set yourself up to fail. It's so important to keep your objectives within your reach. If you put your goal beyond your reach, this is one sure way that you are going to threaten your self-confidence. So don't do that to yourself, please. This may mean that you need to break down your objectives into smaller bite-sized chunks, but realistically that's what we're doing anyway in nursing by giving you year 1, year 2 and year 3 boundaries, set kind of limits, because the end goal is that you become competent and confident in your nursing ability. But to start off with, you're definitely a novice. So how do we get you to that end point? We break it all down, which hopefully makes things a little bit more achievable for you in the long run. R stands for realistic. Setting your goals beyond your scope of practice is not realistic, and it might actually be beyond your ability at this stage. Again, that's going to attack your self-confidence. So just don't do it. With years of experience of working with students are very hard on themselves. So don't add more weight to yourself by setting your objectives as unrealistic goals. A way to do this, a way to know what is realistic for you, is again looking at your pad. So make sure that you're going through the skills, because they will reflect the level at which you should be performing within your first year. The information is there for you, you've just got to look a little bit for it. And T stands for timely. Pop a date in, basically. If you don't provide yourself with a date, then that objective could be with you forevermore. If you think about your assignments, your essays, there is a very clear end date as to which the university expect that assignment in. So if you're thinking back to your clinical placements as a module, then the end goal should either be your midpoint to be assessed or your final. Setting a deadline is absolutely going to provide you with more internal motivation. By also giving yourself a date, it makes sure that you have some kind of awareness of your development within that objective, a sense of your success. So now let's have a look at some examples. These are my objectives that I've used over the years. They are real life examples. Please just again make sure that you're recognizing the environment that you're in and making sure that your objectives remain achievable and specific to the area that you're in. So some of these might not be relevant. How about something around observations? So I want to become competent at taking a set of observations on my patient. It's a smart idea, but let's now make it a little bit more smart. By week X, so by week 6 of my placement, I would like to become competent at taking and documenting temperature, manual pulse, respiratory rate and blood pressure on a defined age range of patients, ensuring that I report my findings to the nurse that I'm working with. Another objective is usually around the conditions and treatments that you will be undertaking. It's a good one as a first year because it starts to deepen and consolidate some of that knowledge that you're already developing from theories from attending lectures at university. So how to set an objective that is smart around conditions and treatments on the ward. How about something like to learn about 2 different ward specific conditions? You've got to name them though. So maybe something like if you're in a cardiac environment, then ventricular septal defect and hypoplastic left heart. Or if you're a respiratory area, it could be something like tracheal rings and cystic fibrosis. By the end of placement, I will demonstrate this by producing a poster on the identified conditions. That kind of bit of how you're going to demonstrate it is really important because that's the measurable part. How are you going to show that you've learned that information? Another example of an objective that I would potentially look for setting a first year is around the admission or discharge process to or from the ward or clinical environment that you're in. It shows a real good, solid understanding of the nursing process and their assessors and supervisors in those areas. That's exactly what they would need from you, is that you are getting to grips with how patients come and go from that environment. Potentially your objective could look something like complete a full admission, including swabs, paperwork, and orientating the patient or family to the unit with the staff I'm working with by midpoint, and complete an admission under supervision by the end of placement. This is also a very good example of how you can split an objective between your midpoint and then also your final. This way it shows that kind of progress. So by midpoint you've worked directly with somebody, working through all the stages, and then towards the end of the placement you can actually do it with supervision by somebody, but you're completing the work yourself. Communication is a huge one. I talk about it a lot in my videos, but how do you word it so it is smart? It could look something like, during my 12-week placement, I would like to work upon my confidence and skills at communicating with families and children within the clinical environment, being able to gain a deeper understanding of professional boundaries and clinical practice on a daily basis with the children and families that I'm caring for. It's a bit of a deeper one, but it's also one that spans the length of your placement. So during my 12-week placement, or however long it is. So although you're not setting an end date, the end date is clearly within that date period. So those are objectives to kind of show you that you don't need to say by an X date, but you can say within a placement length. I also know that I've talked previously in other videos around utilising other people, other professionals, other parts of the multidisciplinary team to develop and further your knowledge and skills. So creating an objective around working with the play specialist, very biased because I am a children's nurse, but they are huge in our day-to-day practice. But you can create an objective to show that you're learning about another professional, but to develop your own ability to carry that out in your own role. So an objective for this could look something like to spend time with the play specialist, learning more about the role of play within that hospital environment, and using this in my practice by the end of placement. So it shows that you're able to learn by observing and pull that into your own practice. So the measurable part of that can be that the assessors and supervisors working with you can see that you're able to use play in your everyday role as a nurse. Hopefully they have been helpful for you. I would like to invite you to now, in the comments box below, write down an objective that you are either proud about or that you've previously set yourself that's been really kind of instrumental in your development. I want us to start to generate some helpful content in the comments box so other users of these videos can learn from the community that are watching me now. So pop your objective as a comment on this video and let's start to generate some helpful content for other people too. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and I will see you in the next video. Bye!